It's loading. Good morning,
Yes, there we
everyone.
go.
Welcome to the
Morning,
Geeky
guys.
Juans. I'm Steven, and next to me is Jude. We are doing an episode all about comic books today. You will see in a bit how many comics I have. It's a crazy amount, I think. Well, it's not crazy compared to other people. In a good way, I guess. Today we will be having Tim Villasor as a guest. We're just waiting for him to join the stream. Um, what else is there? What
That's
has
it.
happened this past week?
What's
In
happened this
well,
past week?
it's Bugs Bunny's 80th anniversary this week.
Ooh,
In I think
nice.
July 28th, diba? Or something like that. Let me double check.
Happy birthday, I guess, to
Yeah,
Bugs
happy
Bunny.
birthday, Bugs Bunny. It's July because the character of Bugs Bunny came in around July. Oh, there's Tim. There you go. Hey Tim, how are you
Oh,
doing?
What's up? I can't hear you.
Nice
morning.
background. Oh, sorry.
Wait, huh?
Okay, no problem. Bugs Bunny's anniversary
Mm-hmm.
is July 27. Nice. Can you hear us, Tim?
Hold on.
All right, no problem. All right.
Oh, there. I can hear you.
There
Can
you
you hear me?
go. All right. Yeah, we can
Yes,
hear
we
you.
can.
All
All
good.
right.
All
Hey,
good.
guys. Good
Hey
morning.
man, good morning.
Morning.
How are you, man?
I'm
How's your
good.
quarantine period been? Your quarantine 6 months.
Well, here and there, just trying to survive.
Hmm.
Uh, well, we try to take it a day at a time, and
Yeah.
well, I've been to Green Hills. I've been to
Yeah.
other
Yeah. I
places
had
now and
noticed.
then, but not as frequent as we'd like it to. Of course, you only
Yeah.
go there for a reason to.
Yeah. And I mean, you've been able to visit a few comic book shops recently, diba?
Yes, I have. I visited. Well, I always go to Planet X
Mm.
in
Mm.
Makati,
Yeah.
and Field Bars there, and in Field Bars Greenhouse whenever I'm there. I was there
Yeah.
yesterday.
How is Green Hills now? Like with with
Hey,
this
yeah.
modified quarantine period.
Okay. Well, it's okay. It's business as usual, but
Yeah.
it's not as many people as they'd like it to be. The foot traffic,
Mm.
but it seems to be that it increases every time I go there. Like yesterday, there were a lot of people at Vera Mall, Femall.
Really?
Yeah, because they had the food thing, food change in the middle.
What?
Wait, in this
In
period may food
Yeah,
changging ngayon? Parang
yeah.
it's
Well, I don't know. I think they're trying to encourage
yeah.
eateries. Of course, there's still social distancing.
Of
You have to
course,
wear
of
a mask.
course.
The Changge is not as full, but
Yeah.
all of the stalls are there. People just need a way to get back to work. Of course, the
True,
economy and
true.
all.
Yeah.
But in terms of the hobby shops, yeah, they're customers. I see people go in and out, but they don't stay till about 6 or 7 because that's when everything.
Mm. Yeah. Because like I noticed with a lot of the hobby shops, it's kind of I think would you say they're still okay since they do have online shops?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, like
Couriers and they just deliver it through
yeah.
Lalamove or Shopee. They order through
Mm.
Shopee. They order through Lazada. Then they have it
Yeah.
shipped by Grab or Lalamove or Mr. Speedy.
Yeah,
I think
Mr. Speedy.
yes.
Like I remember because like so diba like when like I remember when Sir Sandy of Comic Odyssey announced that hey we're gonna have to like close the physical store for a while due to the quarantine.
Mhm.
Then all of a sudden here comes the plan of like rolling all of their comics online. Like before the quarantine I noticed that Comic Odyssey's online catalog wasn't as big. Like, did you notice that change when you visited the website recently?
Well, yeah. Okay. Are we ready on? Are we on
Yeah,
the?
we're already on.
Okay, okay, fine. Since we're already starting off, as you're well aware of,
Yeah.
DC Comics divided themselves from Diamond Distributor, right?
Yeah,
You heard about
yeah,
it. Yeah, right.
yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
they
I'm
changed
still
the
waiting
shipping.
for my package.
Yeah, so there, of course, understandably, everybody has to
Yeah,
shift with that new status quo,
yeah,
and that will cause delays. So if you're looking for your DC Comics fix, that might be a week
yeah.
later or 2 weeks
True.
later.
Yeah,
Uh, and with the pandemic, the airline bookings are harder, so
yeah.
it has to meet a certain quota, right? A
Mm-hmm.
shipping quota. So you can't really get all the books in. Sometimes there will be delays,
Hmm.
and given what's happening right now, we can't really complain. You
Yeah.
just wait.
So like, how do we explain the distributor thing to, like, let's say a person who's not really familiar with comics?
Okay. Oh, just think of it like it's not on time.
Mm.
As if, okay, let's give pizza as an analogy.
Yeah.
Usually, when you order, it's supposed to be like a 45-minute guarantee. There's
Yeah.
no 45-minute guarantee
Oh shit.
during a modified CQ
Hmm.
or ECQ. But
Yeah.
general GCQ, the GCQ or general community quarantine that we're in right now, it's almost normal, but you can expect a few hiccups.
Hmm.
So it's not going to be a smooth flow, depending on how many people order,
Yeah.
as compared to before when it was a lot stricter, because they're trying to filter how things go through and who they go to. They can't go to all areas, so that's
Yeah.
similar to comics. Comics can't be delivered in all regions or
Mm.
all countries. There might be certain restrictions that are different from what we're experiencing right here.
Hmm.
Uh,
So I just
expect
remembered, like, sorry, yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
no, expect delays. That's
Ah,
all.
yeah, yeah. So like, I noticed something was that. So how do I describe this? So it's like an ice. I guess another way to describe it is like an ice cream machine getting a new flavor in a way, like with the new
Uh,
distributors. Is that a good way to
yeah,
describe it? Like
yeah.
Diamond is one flavor, and then this new distributor Lunar is another flavor, and it's taking a while for that flavor to arrive. Is that a good way to
Yeah,
describe it? Ah, okay.
yes. But in terms of how the flavor resonates with the
Yeah.
crowd, or if it's widely available because the ingredients couldn't be mixed on time, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's how the situation is. If we're going to compare it to ice cream,
Yeah.
unlike a 20 plus year proven formula, which is
Yeah.
there because everybody got the ingredients, now everybody
Mm.
has to look for the ingredients to make a new
Yeah.
concoction. They can't. Uh, they can't. They can't make it common standard yet. They have to
Mm.
slowly pick up the pieces and they have to fix it. So uh, that's what's happening right now.
Mm.
They had to sign up for a new distributor,
Yeah.
and that's going to cause delays because
Mm.
everybody has to get their mailing address, their how much books are they shipping, and unlike Diamond, where yes, it was a monopoly, where
Yeah.
everybody pays and there's a certain courier there. Now you have to pay other people, so
Oh
that's more
god.
expenses. Yeah,
Would you say that, okay? Okay, so I think we all acknowledge that Diamond, what used to like distribute all the comics, they were a monopoly. Would you say DC breaking the monopoly was a good thing? It's just that the timing was bad.
yeah. Some people see it that way, but
Mm.
others will see it as an inconvenience, and I can understand
Mm.
that also. You're so used to a certain way of shipping, and then
Yeah.
it comes crashing down. So,
Mm.
and the timing was bad.
Oh,
The
true.
timing right now, I understand people need to sell and push their books forward, but
Yep.
working with the community is paramount right now.
Yeah.
Try to balance it and see how it works. But given that they made that decision, it's their decision. But
Hmm.
people will have a harder time, or they'll have to adjust with the flow.
Hmm. Saying hi to the 3 or 5 people watching right now. Good morning. Thank you for joining us this early,
Morning.
man.
It's
Thanks for
10:30
All
joining.
a.m.
right. Yeah.
First
So let's
time we
start
are
with
ever doing this.
yeah, man. Let's start with the first question. How did you get into comics? So let's start with Tim, then Jude, then myself.
Okay. Comic books. It started with my brother.
Uh
So
huh.
we're two. So he's the older.
Hmm.
He's the older one, and he collected comics. Shout out to my brother Ted, by the way.
Woo. Say
So-
hello to Ted Villasor.
Yes, I will. I actually told him about this. He's busy with his family.
Okay.
So, of course, I grew up with animated shows in the 80s. You'd watch old serials or comic book based programs like Thundercats, He-Man, Transformers. G.I. Joe.
Yes.
Yes, I'm an 80s guy, so I grew up with that. Comics wise, of course, Marvel and DC being the big two, they had their own share programs. Of course, you remember the 60s Iron Man, Captain America.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Namor the Submariner, and Hulk. Those were the five. And then the Spider-Man animated series before the 90s. There was the 80s and 60s.
The Spider-Man and his super friends or something? The one with Firestar and Iceman?
Spider-Man and his amazing friends. I grew up with that.
Man, GMA in the mornings. I remember that.
Yes. And Miss Lion the cat. The cat. The dog. Miss Lion the poodle.
What?
Poodle
A poodle?
dog.
Oh, Starfire's dog. Firestar's dog. Yeah, I remember now.
Yes.
Good morning, Zar.
Yes, it was a dog, but with a name like Miss Lion, you'd think it was a cat. It's a dog. My mistake. But yeah, that and DC, of course, Super Friends and the Barbera.
Oh,
so you had the campy versions of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Robin, Aquaman, and then later it became more serious. 90s came along. X-Men, the animated series, of course. That's why I'm collecting Marvel Legends now, because you can collect the 90s Jim Lee versions of X-Men.
Is that in the background? Are those the Marvel? Or wait, those are Ghostbusters, yeah?
Yes, it's another show I grew up with.
Nice.
The real Ghostbusters.
Nice.
No, I'm talking about the Marvel Legends. The old Toy Biz.
Oh my
Cyclops.
God.
From the Jim Lee era.
Old school 90s, yeah.
Old school
Nice.
90s. I am collecting the Marvel Legends era of X-Men. 90s era of X-Men. So,
oh man, that's a lot.
I'm sure. Well, that's another topic. But going back to the comic, there were the comic book stores. There was Comic Quest and Field Bars, and then you'd read the comic book storylines like Death of Superman, Nightfall, Batman Nightfall, and in the X-Men side, you had Jim Lee's era of X-Men, then leading to Fatal Attractions when they pulled out Wolverine's adamantium, Magneto.
Oh, that's when that happened in the 90s. Okay.
Fatal Attractions. Yeah. And Spider-Man, of course, the Clone Saga. Let's not forget the Clone Saga.
Man. You want to talk about how long the Clone Saga was, or wag na lang?
Mid-90s. I was already in my I was in grade school, so
yeah.
Yeah.
It was like how long did the Clone Saga take to finish?
2-3 years?
Holy crap. It's like doomsday
More?
clock levels of waiting.
Yeah, but not with delays. They just kept on tugging all of these unnecessary threads and storylines just to make it a bigger mystery. Oh my god! But then again, if we didn't have those, we wouldn't have the stuff that we're enjoying now. They influence something, and then they bring back a certain arc. That's why Kane was brought back, and Ben Reilly was brought back during the Clone Conspiracy. They try to revisit this, or they rehash it. There, the comics.
All right.
So,
All right,
I started comics relatively young, but I still continue to read.
What's a comic series you're following right now?
Batman and Amazing Spider-Man.
Nice.
And Jonathan Hickman X-Men. But
I heard that's really good.
House of X and Powers of X. That was good. The start was good, but right now it's good
kind
thing
of
I'm
getting
not
convoluted.
too many titles, and I'm in it for the main ride, but right now it's not the same as how I enjoyed the X-Men in the 80s and 90s. I still consider the gold standard to be the 80s and 90s.
Nice. All right, Jude, what's the first comic that you got into?
Okay. Well, maybe not comics, but yeah. Kind of similar to Tim. Like I've watched a lot of shows based on comics. So
Yeah.
Spider-Man, X-Men,
Teenage
lots of
Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yep,
Oh my
Teenage
god,
Mutant Ninja Turtles.
TMNT.
I
And
actually like I
Power Rangers
actually
is
like the
comic.
time. Yeah, there's just so much comic book based cartoons back
That's
then, and
true.
then you sometimes don't notice it, like
Yeah.
the amount of stuff they released back then. But yeah, but comic books that I first had, maybe it's weird. I think the first ones I got were Star Wars comics from Dark Horse, and
Wow. Holy shit.
those were just
Expanded universe.
comic book versions.
Yes.
No, it's not expanded. It's just Empire Strikes
Legend.
Back and Return of the
Oh, an
Jedi
adaptation.
in
Nice,
comic book
nice.
form.
Oh, you mean
Nice.
actual canon before Lucasfilm decided to go and sell to Disney, and yeah, they started a new whole continue.
Yes.
Yes,
No, they just purged the whole expanded universe
yeah.
Oh
Yeah, that's what
god,
I
that's so
enjoyed.
true.
I actually thought you got like Shadows of the Empire. That's why I mentioned
no.
expanded universe, which I
Yeah.
enjoyed. But now it's not. It's out of the window.
But I think yeah, I did get a few expanded universe. But yeah, those were my first comics, and I remember really enjoying that because it was the first time I saw, like, how comics are, how comics look like, from panel to panel. You
Yeah.
know that those two comics ago made me understand how each panel works, why each panel is different size, how each, action segments, how do they do
Yeah.
that. And then I think, and one of the nice things there, you can also those comics also had Ralph McQuarrie concept art.
Of
Wait,
So
McQuarrie.
it
what?
had the Star
Wow.
Wars concept art, so it looked really good.
Oh man, that is
But yeah,
excellent.
after that, of course, I was a kid, and then, just in time, Marvel just released, earliest movie adaptations of Spider-Man. So basically the
Oh man.
2000s, and then I remember. Oh, I remember reading Civil War. So those were later. Yeah, those were much later. But yeah, I started in the late 90s. So
Hmm.
so mo- I s- I got exposed to comics basically due to all of the shows I watched as a
Of
kid.
course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Same
think that's
same thing, yeah.
Same. Same.
Yeah, like the same thing for me. Like the first comic book I got was one of those Batman and Robin Adventures comics.
Oh, I love
I don't
those.
I I don't have it anymore, but I remember that I just remember it was involving Arkham Asylum. Like that's all I remembered. Like so I barely remember anything. But like the first real comic that was very memorable for me was the Animaniacs comics. I think it was like issue
Anime.
99 or 100, wherein they had like a whole parody of Wacky Races. So that's another like Warner Brothers meta parody of something. And
They
then
were
that
Japanese
race
Barbera.
yeah, exactly. It's like Warner Brothers jabbing their own partner companies, doing literally a full Wacky Races with Freakazoid and other comedic characters of WB owned properties. It's crazy. I don't know where it went, but I still remember that comic because I remember we got it on a trip to Singapore before. It's like that was the first time I ever had like, oh my god, it's a comic book. Like a really like something like hold on, I have like so many examples right now. Like, so it's like something like this, but like much thinner.
Oh, that's Fantastic Four. The
Yeah, the
facsimile.
facsimile edition. Yeah.
Well,
So
since we're
like
showing
yeah.
comics. Uh, well, this just turned 30.
Wow.
ooh, nice.
God, the
Spider-Man.
Todd McFarlane one.
Yeah, because I was
Epic.
celebrating. Yesterday was Spider-Man Day, by the way.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You were showing on
so
Facebook, diba?
yeah, shout out to
Epic.
Spider-Verse page.
Yeah.
My cosplay team of spiders. McFarlane had a documentary on Sci-Fi Wire, part
Yeah.
of Comic Con at Home.
Hmm.
So this comic is 30 years old.
Oh man.
Of course, everybody loves it because of Todd McFarlane's artwork. We get
Yeah.
into comics because of the artwork, but of course, as we get into it, we also look for the storytelling and the
Hmm.
writing.
That's right.
Writing here, I mean, it's not gonna be a Stanley or J. Michael Straczynski. I'm sure you read
Yeah.
those lines, but other than that, we always find something from the past that makes us recollect. Oh, what was our first comic? And yours
Yeah.
was Animaniacs, right?
Yeah, Animaniacs. It's crazy. And then anyway, so since we're already like showing the different kinds of comics, so there are different kinds of comics. There's manga, there's local comics, there's the Western comics. Like how different is each one? Because like I noticed like when it comes to manga is pretty much here's the world, we're setting it up all in one series, let's
Yes.
go. And then in like Western comics, it's like, okay, let's mix everything up. Like literally mix everything up. Like Civil War had like how many editions? Like I'm sure you've experienced this, Tim. Did you go through that period of like event overload where like there were so many comics that it was difficult to collect everything?
Yeah. Well, I was there when Civil War started, and I collected.
Mm,
I didn't collect all the tie-ins. I only collected the ones I wanted, which is supposed to be
yeah.
the purpose. But over time, yes, there were moments where there was too much happening that I didn't want
Yeah.
to collect everything. One good example would be Blackest Night
Oh
with
god.
Green
Oh
Lantern.
my god.
Yeah, I collected every single. I wanted to read the
Mm,
entire because I'm into horror, zombies, and comics and the Green Lantern lore. At the time, Geoff Johns was writing it, so
yeah.
it was great. He constructed it from bringing back Hal Jordan and Green Lantern Rebirth, then the Sinestro Corps War, then establishing that there are different rings and the emotional spectrum,
Oh,
and
I
then
love that.
full blown anarchy and bringing back dead characters in the Blackest Night.
Hmm.
Then one of the lure-ins for DC to collect the tie-ins was they were giving away the rings.
Ah.
So in order to get that, you have to order a certain comic book, which is
Yeah.
tied with that. So they spread it out, and then I was interested in the story as well. So yes, I collected every single tie-in. Blackest Night. There was
Oh my
another
god.
example. I don't want to collect even now.
Yeah.
Empire with Marvel
Oh
Comics.
god, so many tie-ins.
I'm not collecting that.
Just wait for the compilation, right?
Exactly. And right now also with Dark Knight's Death Metal,
Oh
I'm just
gosh,
gonna, I'm
that
just gonna
too.
collect the main series. I got kind of burned out with Dark Knight's Metal collecting the
Yeah.
dragons, just to follow what's happening with everybody else.
Yeah. And like imagine now with the delays with Lunar, it's gonna take longer for the books to come out, diba?
Exactly.
And then the last kind of the comics I want to talk about would be like, local comics, Filipino comics. We got
Comic.
the likes
Okay.
of Drew D. Borja with Hong Hang
Yes.
Flashbacks. We got this. And then we also got, well, I got a reprint of Jesse.
Of
I
course.
haven't read it yet, but it's going to Netflix.
It's going to Netflix. Shout out
Yes,
to
Netflix
Budget
check.
Budget Dan. Man. And then like I noticed with Filipino comics, I think we're the most experimental because the market
Yes.
isn't as big. Kasi diba, pag nasa US ka, it's pretty much okay, you're either doing the big two or you're doing an indie like, I don't know. Maybe you're doing an indie like, wait, let me just find that comic. Sorry, nawawala. Does Boom count as an indie studio though? Parang hindi na diba?
They have the Power Rangers license.
Kaya nga eh. It's like, I don't know if you count as like Image, I guess is indie, but not really.
Well, Image started with Spawn and of course
Yeah.
McFarlane talking
Yeah.
about that. But of course, we can cite other popular comics that came out of Image imprint, like The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, that's true. And then what else? Walking Dead,
Walking Dead.
Invincible.
Invincible. Robert Kirkman also.
Yeah. Oh god, Kirkman. It's like Kirkman has like so many machines running at once in his head. It's like he's done with Walking Dead, but now he's doing spin-offs of the TV shows and maybe a movie. And then what's that other one? The one that just came out on Netflix. I think was it Greg Rucka or the one with
Old,
Charlize Theron.
yeah, Old Guard. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah. That's another Image comic, right? Or no?
I'm not familiar with the imprint, but I know it's by Greg Rucka.
Hmm. And then, like, with speaking of indie comics, we also, I mean, in the Philippines, yun nga, we have so many varieties because, yun nga, we're willing to experiment because there isn't really like a solid, like, market of like distributors and publishers and everything. Like, Vizprint and Vizprint's main focus isn't even comics, right? Like, I think Vizprint does other kinds of comic, like books, like educational books, etc. Right? So, like, comics is like
Pretty
kind of like
much.
like an additional thing, tama ba?
Yeah, it's more traditional here if we're going to look at the scene, and that's
Yeah.
why they have local Comic Con conventions. I mean,
Mm.
just to spread the word and see how the artists can showcase their works and share it, and then develop into a series. It's harder now given the pandemic situation, but
Yeah.
they're also trying to share it digitally, much like
Yeah.
how it's very different. Okay, if we're going to move to digital, talking about digital comics, and then the big
Yeah.
two obviously have
Yeah.
platforms and apps. Uh, it can be appreciated to reach a wider audience, but
Mhm.
I'm sure you can also attest that as
Oh
a comic
yeah.
book collector, there's nothing like holding the comic and
True.
having it in your hands
Yep.
printed. It's very old school, but it's also a collector's item.
Yeah. But like when it comes to like physical versus digital, since we're already on that talking point, I noticed that
Okay,
for some people, like digital comics does have its advantage because you're able to like see the full color of the item without it being faded by the print or something. But at the same
oh
time, I
yeah,
get your point. Yeah, I get your point of that. It's still better when holding it. Like I don't know how true the Stan Lee statement is about when you hold a comic, it's like boobs supposedly. um like I don't know if there's any truth to that Stanley quote that like holding a comic book is different from like, yeah, exactly, Stanley. So like holding a comic book is like boobs. It's like when you it's nice to look but it's better to touch, something like that. Like it could offend some people.
yeah, of
um
course.
yeah.
I wouldn't look at it that way.
Yeah, it's such a
I guess
weird
you
statement,
can
but
just take
like that's how they see it.
yeah, I guess he meant it in jest. The
Yeah.
late great Stan, but it's more like it's something that you can look at and hold at the same time
Yeah.
because it's printed, and
Yeah.
you know that a lot of work was put into it, and
Hmm.
over time it
Yeah.
ages. It becomes it ages like fine wine. So if we're
Yeah.
gonna compare it to wineries, like it becomes vintage, it becomes a collector's thing, and
Hmm.
the value may differ because there's a market
Yeah.
for that.
That's right. But then like iniisip ko
Mm.
rin, like with regards to, physical versus digital, there are I mean, making physical comics does cost a lot of money, 'di ba? Like we've had like
Yeah,
GoFundMe's and Patreons and stuff for, sina ba? Sina Toto Madayag, for example, 'di ba? He had to do like a GoFundMe, I think, for one of his recent comics and such, so that he could get the stuff published. Unlike if you had like a big distributor with you, it'll be so easy, diba? Kasi sila na bahala. But then the problem is they do
they have
get like
backing. Yeah,
a portion of the money, right? Like I think D
yes.
Borja is an example. Like how he works with Summit, diba? Like
Hmm.
he works with Summit, so like anything he releases with Summit, Summit gets a cut. And then like, if he distributed it himself, then of course all the money goes to him. It's just that has to go through the entire process of, scouting for paper and like the material and such. But I
Yeah, yeah.
noticed that he became popular digitally, diba? Like Hong Hang Flashbacks is a pretty popular niche thing online versus like the
Mm.
physical version, which is like a side thing now. Oh
It's
wow.
it's a
Uh,
challenging. Oh, what's up?
later.
What happened?
It's okay. We'll do it later. We'll go ahead, Tim. Sorry, we interrupted.
It's fine. It's a challenging thing to build your reputation, whether it's
Yeah.
online or physical. Physical, of course, it's a more noble prospect because you're going to work together with the artist. I'm taking, for example, my brother. He has his
Yeah.
own comic book, Lindell Comics.
Nice.
Yes, he did that. It's basically a post-apocalyptic story of
Hmm.
earthquakes, that happened around the world, and think Mad Max, but with earthquakes.
Ah, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
or yeah. So, shout out to my brother. Yeah, you have the book published, and you have to find the printer, then get a certain run done. Then, of course, you go to the conventions, and then you have to sell the book
Yeah.
and promote yourself along with the artist, and then of course there are you augment that also by going online, then you promote it.
Mm. And then like
It's a
with
lot of
regards,
experience.
yeah. So like with regards to that, like the art in a way, if you're an independent artist, you can determine the type of comic you want to make, right? I mean, you have total freedom. You can make it into a web comic, you can make it into like a regular comic, like, you know, Mechadet U was like a thing with Greg Pak, Takeshi Miyazawa, Fiona Farrell. They just made this as like it was an idea, and then they just turned it into a full-blown comic. But like they had the backing of Boom Studios. But like when you don't have the backing of Boom Studios, let's say you're a smaller studio, for example, I think 13, right, was not under part of any like big studio, tama ba? Or is it part of
Initially, they
a?
were well. Um, it wasn't really big. You had budget, and the rest had to start it out from the bottom. So
Mm.
now it's noticed the people were talking about it, and now it's getting its own Netflix series,
Hmm.
animated series,
Oh, nice,
right?
nice. It's crazy.
No, I mean Trece. We're talking about Trece,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah. We're talking about Jesse. Yes.
it's wow. You can only dream. Comic book creators can only dream that their work gets picked up, and then they do something.
Hmm.
Becomes an animated adaptation.
Yeah, and then speaking of like possible adaptations, Jude, you have the yung Manix Abrera, meron ka, diba?
Yeah, I have. I was
Could you
an
imagine a Manix Abrera comic as a cartoon?
I could actually. So they
Diba?
have a few Pico Machine comics. This is my sister's.
Ah,
Yeah, I was
nice,
going
nice.
around. I was going around my house. They're cleaning. So and then I remember, oh my god, I need to get. No, I need to get a few books out. So I got. I immediately remembered Kiko Machine. So that was fun.
Hmm.
So
Diba? From
yeah,
news strip
Wait,
to compilation.
and I did get some. I did get manga, which is
Oh,
me being a Gundam fan. There's Gundam Thunderbolt here, which
oh,
I'll probably
dude,
talk about.
nice.
you're talking to the right crowd. Yes. Which Gundam? Are we
Oh,
talking
this one?
Universal Century, or are we talking about
Yep.
the alternate universe?
This is Universal Century. It's a
The
spin-off, and
never-ending Universal Century.
one of the few,
No, I'm happy it's not ending.
it's one of the few. This one is one of the few manga that got animated because
Really?
usually in Gundam it's animation first,
Hmm.
then manga second.
Manga.
So
Nice.
the
Yes.
few
Which one are
exceptions
you
to
holding?
that. What?
Which one are you holding there? What are you holding there for the
This one is
audience? In what
Gundam
book?
Thunderbolt. So yeah,
Yes, Thunderbolt.
this one was a manga first, and then animated into 8 episode
Nice.
OVA, which
Kenobi.
was compiled into two
Kenobi.
movies. Although it's not finished yet, I really wish they did. It's a
Hmm.
really great work, and it's a nice side story. Although it does interfere with the original series timeline in terms of
Oh
like
man.
technology. Like if you see the technology here in Thunderbolt and compare it to like the original show, it's just way out there. But yeah, that's manga. And by the way, one thing I'll share, whenever I read manga and then read the comic after, I sometimes forget that I had to read left to right back.
Of course. Yes,
Right
it's
to
the other
There
left,
way
was
right?
around.
there was that one
Ah,
time na
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was reading Thunderbolt, and I think I was reading something. I was reading a Marvel comic, and then
Yeah.
I was wondering why is this confusing? And then I just remembered that I was reading it reverse
Right to left.
unconsciously.
No, you have to change your orientation for that.
Yun nga eh.
It's a different world. But over time, and especially if you grew up reading manga, like I
Yeah,
grew up with Dragon Ball and the Ranma, and then you have to find out you
Ranma.
have to read it in the opposite way.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were talking about Gundam. It's just an interesting point that you mentioned that the comic, the manga, was the
Yeah.
basis and the inspiration for the for the show. They're doing the same thing. Well, it's not a comic; it was a light novel for Hathaway's Flash. We're
yes,
waiting for that.
Mm.
that's why I'm waiting for
Yes,
that.
I'm also waiting for that. Just to give a little nod to Gundam. Uh, what's another good example of comics to? Well, we can talk about the movies now. All of the
Yeah,
movies
that's
that
true.
we, which were adapted, whether loosely or direct. Let's give an example. You talked earlier, June, about Spider-Man, Sam Raimi
Yes.
Spider-Man. Everything more or less was faithful to the comics, with the exception of the web shooters, which was organic.
Yes.
Instead of
Mhm.
developing web shooters as a scientist, they decided to give it as part of Spider-Man's power set. And there, the comics, it seems to be a trend, mostly with Marvel movies, especially
Yes.
if the movie is popular. The adaptation may influence what's happening in the comic series or the continuity.
Yeah, yes, pretty much, right? It's just I
Yes,
don't know. It feels weird sometimes that to see movies dictate a bit of what the comic should be, which is, so it should be the other way around, but Marvel kind of changed it back
exactly.
then.
That's why I was going to get into that with Spider-Man's thing, his web shooters. Thankfully, they didn't de-age him. But then, well, it's another topic we can say for later. The one more day, the removal of the marriage between Peter Parker and Mary Jane. Yeah, a lot of people are pretty sore about that, and we're hoping they fix it. But okay, one good example of movies influencing the comics, and I don't like it because it's so different in
Okay.
terms of characterization, is this guy, Robert Downey
Oh,
Jr., Tony Stark, and then they changed the attitude of Tony Stark in the comics to reflect Robert Downey Jr. So it's basically Robert Downey Jr.'s attitude as Tony Stark in the comics. But Tony Stark was never like that. If you read old school Marvel comics like the Armor Wars or even Civil War for that matter, he's a futurist. He takes things seriously. He broods. He sits and he has to make the tough decisions, but he doesn't wisecrack or he doesn't become sarcastic. So
yeah.
it's so different now. You see Tony Stark in the Iron Man books. So
Like
it's
how
RDJ.
yeah, how different is Iron Man? Like I'm sure because I was only familiar with Iron Man the cartoon from like the old '90s on
Yes.
iChannel. God, iChannel
Marvel
that had
Action Hour.
so yeah, that one. It's like Fantastic Four,
Yes.
Spider Man, like
Yes.
Iron Man, like those series. I that was where I discovered Iron Man. Like literally, I didn't know anything about the character before that. How different was the RDJ Iron Man from like the old comics Iron Man that you're probably more like you are more familiar with?
Okay, yeah, I was mentioning that earlier.
Yeah.
There, his attitude isn't sarcastic. He doesn't wisecrack. He's not. Well, he's basically not goofing off.
So he's not
I mean,
RDJ basically.
no, it's not an RDJ version of
Yeah,
Iron Man. Now, since RDJ is popular, and kudos to him, it revived his career, and I enjoy seeing the big
definitely,
screen version.
definitely.
It's a success story. It's not the same vibe with
Hmm.
the comics when you see that translated, because I've known, as I mentioned to everybody else earlier, I read the Armor Wars. That's where I was introduced to Iron Man, and then succeeding storylines, Operation Galactic Storm, and then Civil War. He's a futurist. He's serious. He broods. He reflects on the weight of his actions. So
So he was
think of it
basically
like Batman,
Batman.
but yeah, think of it like Batman, but he's not a loner. He
Oh,
has help, and he gets drunk. Demon in the bottle. You remember
yeah,
that storyline the famous storyline of Iron Man, probably, where you see a dark side of himself through his own
hmm,
actions by drinking, which they
yeah,
only which they only covered on Iron Man 2 when he started acting wild in the party, but
yeah.
it's not the
It was.
same.
Would you say it was barely touched, even though like the comic itself, from what I understand, Demon in the Bottle was like a big story, right? And then for some reason
Yeah,
in the movie they just like breezed by it, like oh yeah, here's War Machine.
They just
yeah,
That's
breezed by
it.
his
there
party tendencies.
he
Yeah.
he peed in the suit, okay, and then he acted silly with DJ Goldstein in the party. Then they fought. So okay,
That's it.
But other than that, going back to uh, comics in general and how it
Yeah.
influences the movies, it's okay to have a loose adaptation in the movies, but
Yeah.
when movies start becoming popular, then they dictate the changes in the comics.
Oh
It's a
yeah,
hit or
that's so
miss.
true.
I mean, you can have different lines. Like, look, they created the Ultimate Universe in Marvel
Hmm.
Comics. Nick Fury was based on Samuel L. Jackson, and they
True.
decide to adapt that to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It
Yeah.
works, but when that Nick Fury is popular, then you don't find any use anymore for the Caucasian original Nick Fury. You decide to turn him into a Watcher, and then you make his son, his illegitimate son, into the new
Yeah,
Nick
the
Fury that looks
sun.
like Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, it's
Uh,
weird. It's weird. I mean,
it's convoluted,
then
huh?
just separate the universes. But if you're gonna change the mainstream Marvel universe for the sake of what's happening right now in movies, it turns off some fans.
Hmm. And then I was like mentioning earlier how there are so many formats of comics. We got like a standard comic, like Mecha Detective. This is a standard cover, and then we got like
Yeah.
facsimile editions with the Fantastic Four ones, and then there's even like the affordable ones, like the True Believers ones. Like this one I got at Phil
Oh,
Bars,
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, I was
the
about
True
to show
Believers
you.
one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Spider-Man Day and all. Yeah,
yeah.
we have the same comic.
Oh,
We
you
have the
got the
same.
True Believers one too.
I do. I collect these.
Yeah, like it's crazy. Like there's so many versions, diba? Like
Yeah,
the affordable $1 versions, and then they even have the variant covers, which like I got this one, the Wave one, the Comic Odyssey exclusive.
Wave.
Yeah, man.
great
It's like
stuff. Or
it's
it's crazy. Or you can go the other way, like going to bookstores or ordering it to
yeah,
your
getting
comic.
compilation.
Yeah, like this one I bought yesterday. The
Oh
my
wow,
check first edition of Torment.
Oh, wow.
oh wow. Where'd you get
And of
that?
course, Green Hills. I found it.
What?
Yeah,
Damn, nice.
there's like the shop with graded comics that they're selling in Shopsville. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you noticed that. Maybe if you go
Mm,
back next time, or you can
yeah,
get this.
it's a fully
Batman: The
book.
Dark Knight Returns,
Yeah.
fully booked. This one comes with the Blu-ray of the animated movie.
Oh,
Oh
man. That's
wow.
awesome. That's
Oh my
awesome.
god, that's epic. And then magkano lang yan, diba?
Yeah,
Cheaper than an
actually,
actual Blu-ray, right?
yeah, it's about 1,500, 1,400
Bro, that's
pesos.
so much cheaper than a Blu-ray. And you get the
Yeah,
book.
like yesterday I got this in Blu-ray. Finally,
Which one? Oh
the Harley
wow.
Quinn.
How did you get that?
Blu-ray.
Did you order online or like is there like a seller
Uh,
here?
I have a supplier. Yeah, I have a supplier who ships it, so I
Ah,
get it.
cool.
I only get region. That's how
Nice. Oh yeah,
with this
I
I
have
watched
that
it
too.
again.
I got Spider-Verse, yeah. It's so epic. Like I'm still
I
waiting.
mean,
I'm excited for the sequel.
me too. 2022.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Takes a
And then
I
while.
like
mean,
yeah. Yeah.
most of these things are extras, and yeah, including again cosplay.
Yeah.
I cosplay. There, you can see on top. I have a cowl of Batman right
Oh
there.
yeah, I see it. The BVS one?
Yeah. So BVS. So as you know, I cosplay. I started in 2011. Influenced
Mm.
from my reading comics. So comics have branched out, and as the title goes, it went on to different mediums, and it impacts society now. I mean, we're looking
That's
at so
true.
many different things from a different perspective, just from the pages of comics, and now pop culture, the internet, movies, TV shows, even merchandise. When you go to Miniso, you see
Ah,
all of
yeah,
those
the
Marvel.
Marvel
So many
Miniso
Marvel
ones.
Marvel
related
Yeah,
Miniso stuff.
I have like a sleep
yeah,
mask. That's like a Spider-Man sleep mask.
I know. So
Oh
it's crazy.
man,
It's crazy.
everywhere.
I
And
can
to think
I
like
can see the
years ago,
title.
yeah.
It says, no, no,
Sorry, go ahead,
go
go
ahead.
ahead,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Stephen.
No, go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Okay, I can see from the title it says how movies differ from comics, and
Yeah,
yeah, you have to. I mean, not that many people will be able to buy a comic like us, go to a comic
yeah,
book store and read it. And sometimes they're exposed to the movies first, and that's okay. It's just if you're if you're delving into the lore of the character, of course, I'm sure you're going to encounter comics in some way or form, and you'll have to understand the differences between the medium then and the
That's
movie
right.
version. And sometimes these actors, when they play the characters, they have to research on their characters and they have to read the comics as well. Like none of them have picked up a comic book, but eventually they do, and then they get to appreciate and enter that mindset of the character.
It kind of reminds you of Doom Patrol, I think, because I think Brendan Fraser as Robot Man, I'm pretty sure he wasn't. I think a lot of the actors of Doom Patrol weren't necessarily familiar with the team. I mean, wait, let me show you. So I have a picture of the Doom Patrol here. So if you're on the audio version, sorry, you got Casey Brink. Wait, let me point here. The newest character. You got Crazy Jane, played by Dan Guerrero. You got Mr. Negative Man, tama ba? Or I forgot his name. It's not Mr. Negative. I think God, I can't remember his Negative Man probably. I cannot remember.
Mr.
His
Negative
name
is a Spider-Man.
Yeah, the Spider-Man villain. Yeah, Negative Man. Okay, I can see the back. It says Negative Man. You got is that some kid that Gerard Way made? You got Flex Mentalo, who is, if you watch the Doom Patrol series.
Speaking of Doom Patrol series, it's if you're an iTunes store user in the US, it's now $10 for the first season.
Entire season? Wow.
Oh man.
Nice. Pero inisip ko lang, parang like these region blocks. Do you think? Oh, I think Tim froze. Uh-oh. Looks like, I think we lost Tim. Oh, there we go.
No, I'm here. Yeah. Earlier, are guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Doom Patrol. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's $10 now.
Yeah, and then like speaking of Doom Patrol, and like this is the Gerard Way version. Now we have adaptations like Netflix with Umbrella Academy, which just came out yesterday or like Friday, tama ba?
Season 2, yes.
Yeah, it's like Gerard. It's like now it used to be that books were generally the main source of things to adapt. Like I think Gone with the Wind was a book or something. Like tama ba? And then like over time, movies just always come from something else. So like now it's always comics. Do you think at some point movie studios will think like, hey, okay, it's time. We have to stop making comic book movies. What's next? Do you think that's possible?
Well, yeah. Well, okay, because some analysts and critics always look at it as a trend or a fad, and usually that's the case. I mean, okay. I was just having this discussion with my brother and some friends. Before superhero movies became a big thing, and they weren't really big. It was always a hit or miss, or it's very loose from the adaptation.
That's true.
I mean, you had David Hasselhoff as Nick Fury back in.
Oh my god, I remember that.
Late 80s. Yeah, and then a very loose adaptation of the Justice League with no Superman.
I remember watching
Batman,
that on
or Wonder
Cinemax, man.
Yeah.
The Flash,
bad.
Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern. Oh.
And you'd only have barely recognizable heroes getting their own movie adaptations, but they were pretty good when you look back. Like I was talking about The Shadow with Alec Baldwin. That was a pretty good.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Or The Mask by Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey,
which was, more of a comedy than a dark comic, which was Dark Horse also.
Yeah.
Dark Horse Comics.
Yeah.
So okay, it's just it feels like superhero movies are big because of course people like fantasy and superpowers. It's much like westerns. There are western movies, and there were lots of westerns, and slowly it became a niche. And then the action movie genre. Before we had superheroes, we had the action hunky heroes like Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Rambo with Sylvester Stallone, and then John McClane from Die Hard. And then that kind of faded out. They got older. Then you had the Expendables. They gathered together. They're playing their own stereotypes, and that was fun. I still enjoy those movies.
Oh,
I
it's
like
a very
rewatching
fun
them.
movie.
Yeah, I'm an '80s guy, so I like those. And yeah, now we come to superhero movies, and it's the same thing. Over time, it might eventually burn out.
Yeah.
You never know, or they might
Yep.
keep. One thing I don't like is they keep on rebooting, but like Spider-Man is a perfect
Yeah.
thing. But it's perfect that it's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now. But it's a very different take on the character as compared to, let's say, Sam Raimi's, which is very pure. Despite what I
Yeah.
was talking about with organic web shooters, it was still very faithful to the comics.
Hmm.
That was the spirit and the heart of Spider-Man. You know that Sam Raimi was a fan,
Yeah.
and he made it in its own self-contained world.
Yeah.
So it told one story about the character.
Because like before the I think I remember watching are you familiar with Darkman?
Of course,
Darkman.
yes, Liam Neeson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it wasn't that like a Sam Raimi thing? Like he did that before doing Spider-Man just because he couldn't get the license or something?
yeah.
Tama.
No, it was years before, but it was an idea. Yes, but it was fun. It was fun.
Hmm.
Uh, then it was popular enough. That was Liam Neeson before Liam Neeson became Mr. Taken or Ra's al Ghul from the Dark Knight trilogy.
Qui-Gon
I'll always
Jinn.
remember Qui-Gon Jinn.
R.I.P. Qui-Gon Jinn.
Qui-Gon Jinn, Dr. Peyton Westlake. Yeah, he got burned in a laboratory accident. Then he was left for dead, scarred.
Hmm.
But he used this skin grafting technology to disguise himself, and that's how he
And then
became
like
Darkman.
the 1 hour, is that like the 30 minute or like 1 hour limit or something? Tama ba? With like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Good concepts.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I think it spawned a comic series and two, I think, direct to TV movies, which starred, I'm sure you know this guy, Arnold Vosloo, who was Imhotep in the Mummy movies with Brendan Fraser,
Oh.
Wow.
and Zartan in the GI Joe movies.
Whoa. Nice.
He was
And
he
so,
was the replacement of
mm,
Liam Neeson.
yeah. And then like diba, G.I. Joe has had a long history of comics rin, diba? So like
Of course, yeah.
let me go move on to the next topic.
Let's
Licensed
see.
adaptations. We
Ooh.
got,
G.I.
like
Joe.
ever since.
Here we go.
Oh, is that a movie or it's a comic or a
Yeah,
movie?
Cobra.
Oh, nice.
It's-
What is that like a full
Yeah,
blown
so
like documentary book, something like that, like a? Oh
yeah, it
wow,
is.
that is epic,
This came out 11 years ago.
crazy
So
man.
I bought it in Buddy Book. I'm a Joe guy. I love
Yeah,
Transformers. So yeah, since we're showing off all of these comic influences and pop culture influences, the
oh, wonderful.
Netflix series is awesome. I'm sure you guys
Oh,
watched it.
I
Transformers.
need to watch that later.
I haven't seen
Need
it
to
yet. I
watch.
was busy with work.
If you love Generation One,
Yeah.
it's a good nod to that.
Hmm.
Yes.
Kind of like Bumblebee. So then we're talking about licensed adaptations. So like Marvel and DC don't do it as much, right? They don't
Yeah.
do the whole like we're gonna license something and then we're gonna let someone else make stuff for us. Kind of like Boom Studios does that a lot, diba? With like Power Rangers
Well,
comics and then like
yeah,
last
they
one
don't.
I got. Yeah, they don't do
Except
it,
for
diba?
toys. Toys, they do.
Yeah, they do. They
Like
do a
you
lot of toys.
never imagined that McFarlane Toys would make a
Yeah, like
would
that
make
was surprising to me. It's like, I thought, oh, they're just gonna do like DC Direct and all. Oh wow, is that
artwork here in the
the?
back.
Oh wow,
Detective
it's a
Comics
Detective
1000.
Comics 1000. Yeah, epic,
Batman, yeah. There's a
nice.
Superman one also.
Yeah,
And of course
and
the
then
games. I mean,
sorry.
they do license out their games
Yeah,
like DC makes Injustice and with NetherRealm Studios, the makers of Mortal Kombat, and then
yeah.
for a time Marvel and Capcom worked together for the Marvel vs. Capcom
Yes,
series, which I
Marvel versus.
enjoyed,
Oh man,
except for Marvel
God,
vs. Capcom Infinite because they excluded X-Men characters. So
it's really that bad. It's such a bad series. The game talaga is just super bad.
No, no. I
it,
think
it, it could have been better. It could have been better.
not having the X-Men sucked.
Wait, what?
Yeah, because they didn't. There was no X-Men characters because at the
Oh,
time they didn't have the Fox license or Fox
Yeah, that
owned
was the
X-Men.
bad part. Not having that.
and
They
then
removed the
like
X-Men characters, which there in the
Oh
older Marvel
man,
vs.
that
Capcom game.
sucks, man.
I think there was also
That's
Marvel
Yeah.
and EA. I can't remember.
what Marvel and EA.
Yeah, they tried
Yes, there was.
Marvel Nemesis. If you guys remember that game,
I
it's
don't
For
remember
that.
forgettable.
that. Crazy.
They tried
It's
to make
forgettable.
I think they tried to make a comic line, a comic series out of that too, but the game didn't catch on, so
Hmm.
people forget.
There you go. That's an example of licensed adaptations that didn't work. So,
Yeah.
one successful story is the recent Spider-Man game for the PlayStation 4, which spawned
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
comic book tie-in.
God, I'm not even done with
The
it with the
Gamerverse.
DLC. It's
it's
not in
the
that.
Uh,
it's the best.
I love that game, and the Miles Morales game is coming out for PlayStation 5 later this
Yeah.
fall.
Like that's like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to like afford that because it's so pricey. Like the game's gonna be like 4K, 4,000 pesos
They
estimate.
say it's like a remastered version of the PS4 Spider-Man, but I don't really
Yeah, I
care.
heard.
I'm just happy with for more Spider-Man.
Really,
Yeah.
those
And
are
then we
games
got
that
like comics going one way, and then like all of a sudden now there's a comic for everything. And like with regards to like comics
yeah,
for everything, I got like this. I somehow I don't know how this happened. I just like joined the contest by random. I didn't even know that it was like, oh, it's gonna be US only. I got a WWE comic signed by
wait,
Dean
Rob,
Ambrose, the AEW World Champion the former Dean Ambrose, now AEW World Champion and
John
IWGP US Champion John Moxley. It's so
signed.
weird. It's like now it's like even companies who don't you won't necessarily see go into comics do
Yeah,
comics now.
a lot of people have comic book adaptations of themselves, like
Yeah,
even
it's like
video games.
yeah, right? It's like how did that happen? Like when was like even though people are saying that oh comic books are dead and comic books are no longer like a what do you call that? Like a genre worth like a piece of a medium worth consuming. Parang people still make stuff. Like there's still a
Yeah,
demand for it, no?
because sometimes it's also influencing your community, or they're using it as
Yeah.
propaganda. A perfect example for that. Perfect example for that is Captain America during World War
Hmm.
II. It's propaganda, right?
Yeah, that's
So
true.
that was shown in
He's a mascot
Captain
for
America:
American
The First
propaganda.
Avenger.
It's basically the
Yeah,
American flag
exactly. And
walking.
yeah, Star Spangled Man with a Plan. You sing that
Exactly.
song,
I
you know it's
love that
propaganda.
song.
So yeah, I do too. I mean, I love, but I love Captain America and what he stands for.
Yeah.
Outside of he stands for the ideals and principles, not necessarily representing a country or a person. That's why the comics were rich with that. The storyline, he'd be disillusioned. He went into a phase where he called himself Nomad. Then
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
came
the
back to wearing Captain America mantle because he knew that it represented freedom. Like, okay, quoting Optimus Prime, freedom is the right of all sentient beings. And then you
Yeah.
you see him as a symbol, as a focal point. So yeah, going back to license adaptation, sometimes they use that to branch out.
Yeah.
It's a representation of a character or a concept, a medium that you follow, and then when you see that, oh, it's something I like or I want to explore. So that's why they license it out.
Mm. And then like with regards to we are talking about, comics with messages and all. Let's talk about that. Changing the title, comics with messages. So you did say Captain America is a form of American propaganda. Like, would you say like how do I say this properly without offending
At the time,
anyone?
at the time, at the time,
Yeah, at the time, of course.
yeah,
it,
the
But like,
time.
I'm just wondering, like, how why is it that some people say that oh, comics having messages is a bad thing when comics have had messages ever since the beginning? Like Captain
okay,
Marvel Shazam being a symbol of the childhood fantasy, like the shonen. If we're talking about anime, it's like the shonen fantasy of having that power, like Goku,
oh,
having all of this power. It's like I don't know why people are complaining about like sorry, maybe not Goku as a good example. Maybe someone like Laura Kinney X-23 when she became Wolverine. Like was there I like would you say like I noticed like some people didn't like it because it's not Logan. Like I refuse to listen to change and all. Like
Okay.
why are some people so
Yeah.
hesitant to
Okay.
change in comics?
Change. It's sometimes it's change for the sake of change or change
Mm.
for forced diversity. You've
Yeah.
seen those topics online and Twitter. People
Yeah.
complaining. I mean, one perfect example where there's a lot of negative comments and
Yeah.
well, it's not and for my case, it's not really the version of the group that I grew up with, but people and they're pushing it because it's diversity and all that. Is New Warriors? I'm sure you've seen that in the internet. How
Yeah.
the New
It was
Warriors
kind
look
of
like.
like medyo pilit talaga. I saw that poster. It was like
New Warriors.
very odd.
Like you have a non-binary character and you have you have I don't know, I don't follow it there, but I've
Yeah.
seen it pop up in the comic groups, and then there are articles about it in Newsarama and CBR. People try to nitpick or
Yeah.
find reasons why it's not in line with their interpretation of comics. I mean, comics is for everybody. It should,
Yeah.
if there's a market for it. If it's not for you, then uh, don't. It's not for you.
Yeah.
Just focus on
Exactly.
what you're interested in. But you shouldn't lecture another person about it.
That's true. And then
Yeah,
like yun nga, parang
bottom
napansin ko. Then like kasi recently, diba? Who was that? Who's that right? The artist Ethan Van Skeever, or however you say his name. Like he's been like attacking these writers who haven't really been like. I mean, I don't know why something like Comics Gate exists. It's like I get your
comic,
point. Like
yeah, with
yeah.
like what's happening right now. I don't know if you saw it with Batman writer Tom King
Oh
calling out
yeah. Jay Lee, right?
that artist, huh?
Jay Lee. I think that's his name. Jay
Jay
Lee.
Lee, yes, and he
Yeah.
wasn't associated. And then I mean, I like Tom King's Batman run, but sometimes it can be it's a very powerful tool. Social media.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be careful what you say
Hmm.
without really. You could have just easily personal messaged him about it before
That's
going
true. That's
public and
true.
saying something. I mean, it could have been averted instead, and now it's become a topic, and then people are weighing in their own opinions.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has their opinion, but still, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us in social media is that platform. We all want to air our disappointment or our satisfaction over a product or changes in comics. Okay, we're going back into topic.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned about Robert Downey Jr. and then Nick Fury. Like
Yeah.
I'm not really particularly happy with them making it the standard in Earth 616 regular continuity when you could have different platforms universe. But as is what it is, and if it sells,
Yeah.
it sells. It's mainstream comics
Yeah. And then let's
or
kind of like
Batman. Batman.
slowly
Oh, wait, okay.
yeah, with Batman. What
I
about
forgot
Batman?
to another very controversial one that
Yeah.
began 9 years ago.
Saying hi
Yes,
to
9 years
Earl
ago.
Maghirang.
Oh, Earl, fanboy
Yeah, he's
SEO.
here. Hi. SEO.
Hello,
Yeah, fanboy
hello,
SEO, man.
Earl, Manga, fellow
You were
comic
saying
book
about
collector,
I
X-Men.
think yeah. I think you were saying something
Yeah,
about the Batman stuff. Are you talking about the wedding?
well, that's another one. That's one.
Okay,
But
but
wedding is it's minor. I know it was a publicity stunt, but no,
oh,
I would have wanted that
exactly.
to work. But I know
Ah,
I would have wanted that to work. It would have been like it would have been like this. This is a
mm.
perfect example of a wedding that worked. Hold on. This is a perfect example of a wedding that worked, and you should have not changed. That worked.
Oh.
That
Oh.
worked, and then you
Oh
because of
man.
people in Marvel or Joe Quesada saying it ages the character. Now you go back to him being a bachelor. Yes, it tells rich
God
stories,
damn.
but
Ugh.
now they're trying to undo the damage of that. That's what I'm saying. Changes in comics. I was gonna get into the new 52 with DC
Yes,
Comics, where
please. Yes.
they rebooted everything. They started with
Yeah.
number ones. and they're only semi reboots like Batman and Green Lantern because they can't afford to
Talaga?
alienate their audience. But they omit characters like Stephanie Brown or Cassandra Cain or Barbara Gordon is Batgirl again instead of having
That's
Batman
true.
Incorporated. I really hated that because I invested in Batman Incorporated being a Batman guy.
Yeah.
Then now with DC Rebirth and putting a MacGuffin like Watchmen's Doctor Manhattan,
Oh
who
yeah.
was responsible in DC New 52.
Yeah.
Now you can slowly introduce back those concepts and then go back to the original numbering because yeah, it was a way to sell comics. Start at number
Yeah.
one, get a new audience, but you also alienate your older audience.
Yeah.
The same with Spider-Man and One More Day and Brand New Day. You make it young
Ah.
again, and
Ah.
you make Harry Osborn alive again. Those are welcome changes. But you undo his marriage because of Mephisto, a deal with the devil. And now you slowly see in the
Ah.
comics they're trying to undo it because they're pairing Mary Jane and Peter back together again.
Finally.
And he almost popped the question. So
Ah.
things like that.
God.
Almost.
Over time in comics, you see these changes, and uh, but there are changes in comics like in X-Men, which are welcome experiments, like what they did in House of X and Powers of X.
Yeah.
Moira McTaggart is revealed to be a mutant who is immortal, and she's
Oh wow.
reborn every time she dies. So that's why
Hmm.
in every lifetime she has the memories of her past lifetime, and that influences the changes in the X-Men universe. That's why
So
the X-Men
parang
universe now is what it is.
so like in a way, Jonathan Hickman in a way kind of like explained why the reboots happen. Parang ganun.
Yes,
Ah,
exactly.
nice.
That's why
Nice.
there's a unified X-Men community. They live in the nation of Krakoa.
Yeah.
Professor X and Magneto and Apocalypse and Mr. Sinister and everybody else are working together again because of that.
Crazy. And then
Crazy
I
stuff in comics.
yeah, it's a cycle, no? In a way, it's kind of like a cycle. It just keeps on like
Yeah.
repeating and repeating. Grabe.
Or to sell. It's basically to
Mm.
sell books. If the writing or the concept is nice, just to
Yeah.
for add changes. Changes is the keyword there to comics.
Mm.
The status quo. You're changing the status quo and shaking things up. Okay, Civil War changed things up for a bit, but we knew that was not going to last.
Yeah.
Superheroes being registered, Spider-Man being unmasked. That's the other reason why they did One More Day, so he can get
Yeah.
back his secret identity. But why did you out him in the first place?
Grabe.
So
Anyway, as we
grabe.
close up, yeah, sorry. You were gonna say something? Sorry.
No.
Ah, okay.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. All right. So as we slowly close down this episode of the Geeky Ones, episode 36. Tama ba, Jude?
36, yeah, I
Yeah,
guess.
36.
I'm
I'm gonna
confused with
post.
episode numbers already.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna do one last topic: how to get started reading comics.
yes.
So I feel like we should start with this one, but I guess it's the last question we're gonna answer. Because my option would be to go online, read online digitally first, then do physical. But like, what do you
Yeah,
guys
that's
think?
okay.
What do you guys think? Let's start with
Well,
Tim, then Jude.
Well, okay. No. I like to hear Jude's answer in this.
Ah, okay,
Go
so
ahead,
let's
Jude.
go with Jude first.
how to get started? Well, the thing is how I like sometimes I can base it on how I got started because the first things I saw were movies and animated adaptations. I think I forgot to say my first comic based adaptation or my first exposure to superheroes in general was Batman, the 90s Batman movies.
Hmm.
Val
Batflix.
Kilmer, Val Kilmer Batman, and Michael Keaton
Batman
Batman,
Forever,
and George Clooney
of course.
Batman.
Ah,
So I think
Batman and Robin.
it was either I think it was Batman Forever that was in my birthday. It was a freaking Jollibee birthday that I remember. But yeah,
oh,
um,
epic.
for my first, so how to get started reading comics? I think for me, I think you can start with looking at a character you might like or a series you might be interested in. Like if you're exposed to an adaptation first, you might want to try that first. You might want to check out you'll understand that hey, there's something different. The story in an animation or in a movie is different, or in a game even is different. You might want to read up on the backstory of each character, and then explore, delve deeper into more comics. Delve deeper into the entire universe of comics that um go with whatever you want after reading something, after reading a character you might like. You might be interested in something else. I think that's a nice way. It's a bit, yeah, it's gonna take time because not everyone would be interested in comics for the long term. Like, sure, you may like one character, but not everyone would be interested in learning more about other universes, other even other comic yeah, even other comic big guns. You may not be interested. Like, for example, you may like Spider-Man, but there's no guarantee that you would like other Marvel characters. You may not like Iron Man. You may not even like Thor. So
Mm.
yeah, I think it's starting with something you like is a great way because it gives you something, you keeps you in your comfort zone, and gets you started. Basically, I think that's it.
All right, let's go with
Yeah,
Tim next.
that's a safe answer. I agree. I agree. Depending on which medium you got exposed to, whether it's television, movies, video games, or the internet, and then you
Yeah.
slowly do your research and you branch out. Yeah, you can get into comics digitally or physically. I think it's safer given we're in a pandemic to read it digitally if you have access
Yeah.
to that. Or if you find yourself researching and you want to pick up a physical comic, I also encourage you to pick it up at your local comic book shop. Try to support them because they bring in our books all the time, like Comic Odyssey, Comic Quest, Field Bars, uh, Dragon's Keep, Druid's Keep. I can
Yeah.
name a couple of comic book shops in our local scene here in the Philippines. You can just search them up in the internet. Uh, I'd say if you want to start as a collector, yeah, pick up back issues. Back issues are
Mm.
widely available. They're cheaper. They're 50 to
Yeah.
$100. You don't have to go for the latest comic. You can just
True.
pick up those. Or as we showed earlier, Steven, there are cheaper alternatives like the True Believers or
Yes. Yes.
$1 comics by Marvel, like this one I'm
Yeah.
holding. Amazing Spider-Man 300, which was called Venom versus Spider-Man, and it was sold for 50 pesos. It just reprints Venom's first full appearance
Mm.
by Todd McFarlane, and then Spider-Man returning to the red suit. Overall, yeah, you have a lot of options right now in this day and age. And I only started collecting comics seriously in the early 2000s. Back then, I
Oh.
loosely collected comics. I only went to National Bookstore or Field Bars and I picked up those comics without even a care on storing them in comic book boxes or putting backboards. I just wanted to read them.
Yeah.
But I got engaged with comics over time, reading those storylines and then trade paperbacks. You could pick up trade paperbacks also in your bookstore.
That's true.
There
The
are many ways.
compilations. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. So you can't say that. And then digital devices, as again, comics. You can look up in Google. You'll see some pages. You can see images. Then from there, you hunt down what the title is, and then you go exploring.
Mm. All right. So I agree.
It's a
It's a
world.
very it's a very similar. I think mine on my end it will be a very similar path to Jude's, wherein start with the adaptations first, then gradually go into the comics. So yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean Jude and I are similar in age. So we both grew up with I think we all did with the Batman animated
We all
series. So that was
Yes.
like the first
1992. Yeah.
yeah, that was like the first my first big exposure to comic books. So like I think it was there that I gradually did it, like Jude did, like research ka muna before trying out the comics, and then like what I would do is experiment with a few, maybe read up on a few characters that you might be interested in, then choose the characters from
Right.
there. Because like I noticed, like I'm
Yes.
not necessarily the biggest fan of like the really major versions of the characters. Like I'm not the biggest fan of Bruce Wayne, Batman, but there is the option of Batman Beyond with Terry McGinnis. And then I'm not the biggest Deadpool fan, but I love Gwenpool. Stuff like that. So parang there are lots of options to choose from when when you want to start reading comics and all. Um Again, I think it's best to go from it's best to start digital, then slowly go physical if you want to. Because honestly, I feel like it shouldn't always be like focus on, oh, you can only be a comic book fan if you only read physical comics. I don't like that idea. I like the idea that it's art. We have different ways of appreciating it. You know, and
Right.
yeah, it's like I feel like that's the one thing that would make it easier for people to start reading comics is if people were just more open to different ideas on how to read it instead of
Yes.
like, oh, it has to be physical all the time. And then
The, the,
so I
the world
guess
has changed
yeah,
where we can read it digitally or physically,
yeah,
and I think we're all in unison in saying that uh, just start with your mobile device or do your research, look up in the
yeah,
internet, branch out, branch
yeah.
out from there.
That's right. And then so I guess the last part is where can we buy comics digitally and physically? Let's start with digital. I know of Comixology. I think that's one of the more popular
Yeah.
platforms. And then we
Yes.
have what else? What other platforms do we have?
Well, from there
Is
it
it?
stems out to
Yeah.
the Marvel app, the DC
Yeah.
app, other apps for the other comic book stuff.
Archie.
But it all
Archie, the pioneers.
are it's all there. I mean, then of course, internet reading, there are websites that
Yeah.
showcase these
Though
things.
we do not
Unfortunately,
encourage it. We do not
not encouraged.
encourage it.
Not encouraged. That's one thing where, I mean, if I want to really explore it, I will look for it in the comic book shop. Rather, again, I'm very old school. That's where I grew up
Mhm.
with comics. I bring it, I read it, or even TV shows. If I enjoy the animated show, I buy physical home video, Blu-ray or DVD.
Yeah.
Uh, right now, you can also get it digitally through iTunes, and I wait for the sales of that. Like I completed the entire DC animated
Nice.
universe, Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series, Justice League. So it just now, and especially now that we're staying home to stay safe, no excuses. Just look.
All right. So I guess let's do our final part, which is the geeky recommendations. We do one recommendation from each person. And since this week's theme is comic books, let's do one recommendation of a comic book or any form of comic book adaptation that you would recommend to our viewers. Let's start with Tim, then Jude, then let's end with me. All right.
Wow, that's tough. You're saying where should they start? It
Oh no
depends on
no,
the
just like
publisher also.
just one recommendation of anything you would recommend for today.
For comics,
Yeah, it could be an adaptation, it could be like a comic itself, it could be anything related to comics.
wow, that's a good question, man. I'll have to think of it first.
All right, let's go with
Jude,
Jude Muna.
Okay. So I
I'm
think
sorry, I have to think.
since I already mentioned this earlier in the episode, I think I'll recommend Mobile Suit Gundam Thunderbolt. So it's
Nice.
a manga series. Backstory: it's a side story of the original Mobile Suit Gundam, and the setting is it's in the late stages of the 1 Year War. So
Mhm.
as the war is about to end, there's this Thunderbolt sector. That's why it's called Thunderbolt. It's a sector that's basically the probably the crappiest sector to fight a war in. It's a former space colony that got wrecked, and due to some magnetic forces, there's lightning in space or something.
Lightning
Anyway,
in space.
Right.
but yeah,
Cool.
the story goes with it's basically facing two special forces of the Earth Federation and Xeon, and um else can I say? But yeah, it's basically a gritty version of Mobile Suit Gundam in a way. It's
Hmm.
like
Yes.
it's darker, it's bloodier, it's like it's so bleak that it beats the original Gundam series by so much in terms of how violent and how brutal it is. Imagine the Zeon forces here are basically um crippled crippled soldiers given a new lease on life. Um that's why they're using specialized mobile suits with using that allows them to use their prosthetics. So that's
Much
what
like the character from Stardust Memory.
yeah, pretty much. So it's really
Yeah.
yeah, but imagine that one expanded into an entire unit, an entire special
Okay.
forces unit. So it's dark
That's a good
and
difference.
yeah, but yeah, although I can say that this is not a great place to start Gundam though, I can tell you. It's although
I,
yeah, it does affect canon, it does affect the actual the technological development of mobile suits at that time. It's a story that's that starts off really violent and bleak, and then at the later volumes it just gets weirder it just gets weirder. There's even a new type cult there's even a cult at one point. But yeah, it's a really good manga series because it does something different. And then while some people may not like the story, one thing that they can appreciate is the art of the manga. It's one of the best drawn in any Gundam, one of the best drawn Gundam series. The animated version did justice to it. The did justice to the manga because I was worried that of course they'll change up a bit of the design, much like they did with Unicorn, just a few
anime.
changes. But yeah, what they did, they kept the art style, they kept the feel that it's a manga. And maybe I can show one. No, I'm showing the wrong volume. Volume 3 is probably the best one. There's just so many. I remember sharing scan versions of these panels, the pages here. And yeah, people are just it's just so much hype. And also I was so happy to see this get an anime adaptation because it's the only way you can hear the jazz music that they always mention in the manga. But yeah,
Yes, yes.
that's my recommendation. And yeah, I think this is almost finished. The manga
Yeah,
run is
saying hi to
almost
Karen, by
so
the way. Saying hi to
yeah.
Karen De Vera,
Oh,
who was
hi,
just featured
hi,
in
Karen.
Cosmo Philippines.
Hello, Karen. We were just talking last night in the media room for Nerd
Nice,
Rage
nice.
PH. We hold that every
Nice.
Saturday. Also, giving a shout out to Adrian and Nerd Rage.
Hey guys, hey Nerd Rage. Hey, okay,
Yes.
so have you decided on your recommendation, Tim, or should I go first?
Uh man. Well, actually, I'm very interested to hear yours, Stephen,
All
because we
right.
don't really talk about that much.
Yeah. So mine would
I saw that
be
Trece.
yeah,
I saw
Jesse.
that
I
Trece.
actually
Yeah.
haven't read Trece yet, so it's like I have to really open this soon. My recommendation would actually be wait lang, it's here somewhere. Hold on. It's buried inside. It's by Toto Madayag, si Libreng Comics, and this one is
Mm,
Bawal Mamatay. um, it's an affordable comic, like compared to like other comics which are like 300 pesos. For roughly the same price, you could get a lot of fun. It's how do I call it? There is no like clear storyline. It's just like a slice of life comic book by Toto Madayag.
mhm.
I've seen him around sa mga Comic Con and other conventions. I recommend it for a lighthearted, though occasionally serious, comic. So that's why I would recommend Bawal Mamatay by Toto Madayag.
That's a good Noble. I mean, now we got one manga
Yeah.
Japanese comic recommendation. Then we got Filipino Komiks, which is great. I like that.
Yeah.
I guess it's up to me to talk
Think
about
of a
something
Western
Western.
comic.
There's so many. I mean, but
Joker
okay,
War.
probably no. I'd say DC is more mature in terms of
Mm,
content and reading. So I would have immediately gone to DC and Batman since I like Batman.
yeah.
But uh, no, I'm not gonna recommend Batman. I think that should be later on because it's kind of dark and broody.
Mm.
I'd actually go for Spider-Man.
Oh.
Spider-Man,
nice.
Spider-Man. Especially since it was
Nice.
Spider-Man Day yesterday.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with that. It's just a
Mhm.
relatable teenager who gets bitten by a radioactive spider and
Yep.
gets superpowers. Then thinks he can cash in on it, and then tragedy strikes at his home, and he loses his uncle.
Yeah.
So
Uncle
then that's
Ben.
Spider-Man number one.
How many times do they have
Uncle
to
Ben.
do that?
How many times did they
I
do that
know,
scene though, right?
only twice, and Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's
I think the
Yeah.
best
Spider-Man.
thing that they ever did in the Spider-Man game was not show it. Was not take that route of showing it.
And also MCU, they just subtly
Yeah, they
make
Yeah.
reference to it, but not really.
yeah,
Like,
I
yeah.
recommend Spider-Man because he's beloved by the world. People
Yep.
see him in all kinds of merchandise. He's actually that's why even in the Guinness Book of World Records, he's known as the world's greatest superhero. They make use
Nice.
of that, the world's greatest superhero
Oh.
honor. And he has so many costumes. He's flighty. He's engaged with different groups and different crossovers. Even DC in the 90s,
Yeah.
Marvel versus
Like he's so
DC
relatable, eh, diba?
crossover.
Yeah.
That's why he's a very relatable character, and he teaches a good message. With great
Mm.
power comes great
Your
responsibility.
responsibility.
That's what
All
anything.
right.
It's
Yeah.
quotable.
All right. So before we go,
Right
is there
there.
anything you want to plug, Tim?
Oh well. Thank you again to the Geeky Ones.
Thank you so
to
much, man.
guys
Thank
for
you so
inviting
much
me.
for joining us this morning.
I enjoyed it. It's a trip down comic memory lane and
Yeah.
talking about something that we're all passionate about in our community, which has led to many other things and opportunities, work, events, cosplay, watching
Yeah.
the movies that we love. And that's why I said Spider-Man also, because I'd recommend the Sam Raimi movies.
Yes.
Or-
That's right.
Yes. It's on
You
Netflix.
go there.
Spider-Man
It's on
2
Netflix.
is
Watch the first Spider-Man. It's
Yeah.
timeless. It's not dark. You just watch
Mm.
it, and the first two at least. Number 3, that's a different
no,
story.
no, no.
But,
Let's
Yes.
hope Tom Holland
it
breaks
became
the
a meme.
curse.
actually, I'd recommend this for kids
Which
of
one?
this
Which one?
generation. Hold on, let me get it.
All right.
We were just showing it earlier. One of the
Yeah.
best animated movies I've ever.
Yes. Spider-Verse is the
Yes.
best comic book movie for me.
Animated.
Ah,
That's why it
man.
won an Academy Award.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
so
man.
relatable. That's why Spider-Man is so
Yeah.
relatable, even in Miles Morales. But yeah, plugging. You can visit me on the social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. As Timzster, you can see it in the name tag there: TIMZSTER.
Mhm.
I also do streaming and reviews, unboxing and toy reviews as of late in my YouTube. So you can see that. Sometimes I unbox Marvel Legends or Transformers or
Nice.
whatever comes up. It's there in my YouTube. And if events come back, I talk about movies. I go cosplay characters along with my group with Spider-Verse or
Yep.
as Batman or with friends in the community
Mhm.
or comic book shops. I see Steven and everybody else during comic book signings. When was the
Yeah.
last one you attended, Steven?
Last
What was the
one,
last
last signing I went to. Oh God, ang tagal
Did you
na.
go to
Might
my
have
exec?
been. No, I wasn't able to go to my exec. I think the last one I went to must have been Stephen Segovia. I think it was Stephen
Yes.
Segovia last
Shout out-
year.
Shout out to Steven. Yeah,
Yeah,
our Pinoy artists working with the
Yeah, we do have a lot.
the-
We do have a lot.
we have
That's
Steven
right.
Segovia. We have We have Lionel Yu, who celebrated his
Yeah.
birthday at the end of July.
Happy birthday, Lionel Yu.
And then we also have Miko Swayan. And then we have
Yeah.
Carlo Pangulayan. We
Rian
have so many
Gonzalez.
talented
So many. So
comic
many.
book enthusiasts. And of course, nod to the late, great Jerry Alangilan of Wasted and Elmer fame.
Oh, man.
Just the comic scene should also be encouraged. That's why I mentioned those artists, because they also started from the bottom, and where are they now? Because they are so passionate of the medium. They draw or they write, and then it flourishes, as with any comic book creator.
All right. So thank you so much again, Tim, for joining us this Sunday morning. Well, it's the afternoon now. Thank you so much to everyone who dropped by. Yeah, it's exactly 12, man.
Exactly 12.
Thank you so much to everyone who dropped by.
Thank you so much for those who are watching, guys.
Yeah, man. You can find us on social media at thegeekyjuans.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, Twitch, at The Geeky Juans. TheGeekyJuans. That's
There
about
you go.
it. Yeah, man.
I plugged you guys. I plugged you guys on Instagram.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, so that's it.
Twitch,
for that.
Man. You at Twitch. I'm also at Twitch.
Yes.
So, there's so many ways for us.
So many ways. All right, so for Tim and Jude, I'm Steven. We're the Geeky Ones. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.